Hey, board gamers, BJ from Board Game Gumbo here, back with another episode of Gumbo Live. It's episode number 83, Gumbo Live, the number one Facebook Live talk show dedicated to board gaming. Our special guests tonight, we've got two of them, Dan Letzring of Letzring Games and a bunch of other stuff, and Nicholas Yu, the designer of Adventure Tactics, Domianne's Tower. We're going to be talking Kickstarters, Gen Con, of course, and maybe play a game with the guests. Board Game Gumbo is a member of Punchboard Media. Check out some of our other fine members like Geekcraft, a blog written by Ken Grazier. He's a game demoer from Cleveland who refused to play Medium with me at Gen Con. Don't think I'm going to forget about that, Ken. I'm going to get you next time. You got to play Medium with us. You can see him at friendly local game stores and conventions all over the country. He loves talking about games. He loves helping people find the games they will love. Punchboard Media, where we all bring something to the table. Hit us up on social media tonight, at Twitter, at Board Game Gumbo, or on Facebook at facebook.com/BoardGameGumbo, and we'll be looking for your questions in the chat. But enough blather, let's get right to our special guests. We've got Dan and Nicholas. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, you guys know what the elevator pitch is. Just in case there's anybody out there who hasn't met you yet, give us the elevator pitch. Who is Dan and who is Nicholas?
Why
don't you go first, man?
Oh, okay, I'll go. So I'm Dan Letzring. I own Letzring Games. We have published 9 titles now, for anywhere from family games like Dino Dude Ranch through Groves, and now Adventure Tactics Domianne's Tower. I localized Matryoshka by White Goblin's Games also this year. I also co-own Galactic Raptor Games, which launched our first game this year, Animal Kingdoms. I co-host Breaking Into Board Games. I write a Kickstarter blog. I do all sorts of fun things in the board game industry.
And somehow you have time for sleep.
Not very much. And I have 2 young kids too, so I don't sleep at all.
That's a lot. Breaking Into Board Games, one of my favorite podcasts. I listen to you guys every time you put out an issue. Thanks a lot. I'm a big fan of that one, by the way, Dan.
Great, thank you. That means a lot. Well, I'm only been on it for about a year now, and so they've been doing this for 4 now. But yeah, it's been awesome being on it, and I love doing it.
I had forgotten that you were a guest on the show. I went back to listen again to the guest when you talked about how you got your company started and everything like that. Did you know at that time that you were going to be on the show eventually?
No, I didn't actually. That time I was just on for fun. And I think within a month or so after that was the transition. They realized Gil was going to be leaving.
Right.
And at the same time, I was becoming good friends with Ian outside of, just board game stuff. And, went really well when I was on the show. And he was like, I think this would be a good fit. And he approached me about it. And it was kind of a big decision because it's a big time commitment too. And I was like, I got to think about it. But I couldn't turn down the opportunity. So I was like, of course, cut me in. And so, yeah, I've been doing it almost a year now.
Sure. Hey, it's a live show. The producer, Steve O'Rourke. Steve, we haven't talked in a while. It's been a couple of weeks since we did a show with these summer sessions. He's saying, hello, BJ, Dan, and Nicholas.
Hey, everyone.
Also, a guy who loves Baseball Highlights 2045, Philip Millman, who won the Baseball Highlights 2045 tournament at the Dice Tower, checking in. What's up, Philip? Haven't seen any pictures lately, so I'm wondering what's going on with that trophy. If you guys are on social media at all, he takes pictures with his trophy all over the country. That's awesome. So, yeah, that's Philip Millman. Thank you for checking in. Nicholas, how about you? Give us the elevator pitch. Who is Nicholas?
Yeah, mine's a lot more boring compared to Dan's. I got my start about 5 or 6 years ago. Like Dan, I have young kids, and they're all about the same age, so they actually know each other because Dan and I are both local to each other. But I took 6 months off from work. I was the stay-at-home dad, and during that time, we had twins, so I was kind of going crazy taking care of them. So I figured channel that into something productive, and I did a board game. In 6 months, front to finish, I created a board game and launched on Kickstarter, and that was Hero Brigade, and that funded, and I went on from there to do Eternal Dynasty. And then finally, I took a couple years off because we had a third kid, which is not advisable, by the way.
I've got 3 myself.
Don't have a third child, so that's good advice. It's tough to have 3 kids, 5 and under.
It's true.
But I did take a couple years off. But then, I kept in touch with Dan. We still hang out, and we would always do the Maker Faire in Rochester together. And then Dan's like, "Why haven't we worked on a game together?" And I just didn't have a good reason why we hadn't. And so we finally decided to collaborate, and Final Fantasy Tactics ended up being both of our favorite video game. So we're like, let's just do a game based on that. And that weekend, I came back with a 20-page design document, and the rest is history.
The rest is history. Hey, Marshall Wells checking in. He's the leader of the Sinlog Game Group. Hey, first time in a while that I've been able to catch a Gumbo Live. It's summertime, Marshall. We got to take a break sometime. So I've been sporadically doing them every couple of weeks. So when we can get some cool guests in, and I'm super excited to have Dan and Nicholas on tonight. So Nicholas, we were talking right before the show started.
Mhm.
You got to go to Gen Con. I went
Yep.
also. Dan, you didn't get to go this summer. Is that right?
No, yeah, I went to Origins not that much earlier, and then I just moved into a new house, and so it just didn't work out timing wise. And so when Nick went to Gen Con, I ran a lot of local demos at our game stores here for Tactus, so we could kind of push two different fronts on getting the game out there.
Yeah, one of the things I always like to do a little show research, and everywhere I found was Nicholas Yu demoing games all over the place. So what did you do at Gen Con? A lot of demos or a lot of meet and greets? What did you do?
Mostly demos. I booked myself way too thin. Unfortunately,
Shocker.
Also, my flight was delayed. Never fly United. I always tell myself that. The last time I flew United was like 5 years ago. So I hope they're not a sponsor of the show.
They are not a sponsor of the show, and they never will be because I can't stand United. No.
Yeah, the last time I flew United was about 5 years ago because of the delay, and I missed a flight. And I'm like, okay, never again. And I got pulled in by a cheap price, and I flew United. And of course, I missed my connecting flight. It was delayed 3 hours. Our flight was actually there, but they end up pulling our plane and our crew to use for another flight that was even more delayed.
More important people than us.
Apparently.
Don't they know Gen Con's going on?
Exactly. So I missed my connecting flight, and I didn't end up going in until the next afternoon. So I missed an entire day of Gen Con.
I actually have a full.
He said that's normal.
Oh, okay. We lost PJ for a second.
He's got Apple products. And
I'm on an Apple product, and sometimes the swamp gas gets us. Sorry about that. But I was saying that I had a good story about travel this time. I was there to volunteer for Gray Fox Games, and I was supposed to be there the day before, and then they moved our slot for when we had to do the booth. So I had like 24 hours to kill. I get to the airport in Tampa from New Orleans, and the lady at the front desk is saying, "Are there any volunteers? We're desperate. We'll give you $600 and refund your ticket if you'll fly into Indianapolis at 9:00 at night instead." I'm like, I don't have anything else to do except go to Baltimore for $750 and drink some root beer or maybe some actual beer. But anyway, that's the first time it's ever happened. I've never been in an opportunity where I could take advantage of that big payment. You've heard it, right? I mean, you've heard them offering these great payments, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been offered that, and if I had the time, I would totally jump on that. $600. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it was a no-brainer, and the $600 can be used for anything. So I'm already planning my future con travels. Already, nice. I'm getting it done. So Gen Con, was this your first Gen Con ever, Nicholas?
No. I actually used to be local to Indianapolis, so I went to Gen Con frequently. But the last time I went, I think, was 3 years ago. But this year I met with all reviewers and just ran demos, so that's why you saw those social media posts of me running demos. Yeah, it was basically every 2 hours I was running a demo.
Nick was scheduled minute by minute through the whole Gen Con.
You know the secret. This is my fourth Gen Con, and every year I get better and better of carrying that little sheet. You got to know where you're supposed to be, or you're going to make a lot of people unhappy, right?
Yep.
Oh, BJ, so I was going to actually ask you. So someone else asked in the comments anyway. Are you going to go to PAX U? Are you going to use that $600?
Yeah,
because I'll be going.
Steve and I have been texting each other about that. I would love to go to PAX U. It comes at a bad time of the year for us, although not really.
It's early December, right?
It's early December. Yeah. It's a bad time for us here in the South because we've got BGG Con right there. Right before Thanksgiving. So
that's only a couple of weeks before. Yeah, I
would say there's a 90% chance I'll be demoing for Cosmos at BGG Con and a 10% chance I'll be at PAX U. So not a great one. Although I would love to see you, Steve. At least at some point we're gonna work the same con together. But what do you guys think of PAX U? Have either one of you been?
I'll be going for the first time this year.
Nicholas?
I'm probably 50-50 on this year. I'd like to go, but I'm still recovering from Gen Con, so we'll see.
You know, the funny thing about PAX U, I haven't had a single bad review yet. Every single person I've talked to said they love the con, they love the people, they love the food. It's one I would love to go to.
Yeah, our friends, the Amatos, Nicole and Anthony, like they did Resistor and Laser Riders and Centipede.
Okay, sure.
And they're doing a guest scenario for Adventure Tactics too. They said PAX U is like probably their favorite con.
And it's growing 25,000 people in only a couple of years. That's
I've heard
nuts.
People predict it's going to be the board game con soon, so we'll see.
It could.
They have a huge brand behind them, though. The Penny Arcade brand.
They do. Yeah. We have PAX South here in San Antonio, only a few hours away. So I've actually worked that one before. It's just not on the scale. That one is definitely electronic gaming type thing. It's not really a board gaming one. PAX U looks to be pretty legitimate. But I got to ask you, Dan, you're a company that has a lot of games out there. You're doing the stuff with our mutual friend Carla Kopp with Weird Giraffe Games. Steve Armini was kind enough to be on the show when you guys were doing Animal Kingdoms. Can a company of your size, do you have to go to Gen Con every year, or can you skip out when you want to?
I haven't been to Gen Con yet. So.
There it is.
But I'm not huge yet. I mean, I'd like to get there. And so, I mean, with the success of Tactics now, we're really hoping to ramp up what we're doing next year. So, yeah, we'll see. But, yeah, I haven't been yet. It's been really hard. I mean, up until this year, my kids are now 6 and 4. But before that, when they're young, and my wife works weekends and, I work during the week, it's hard coordinating a lot of things. So unless it's really close or really not that expensive, when the kids were young, it was really hard to be able to commit and get there.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, Nicholas, you probably have the same thing. The amount of times that I went to a con when my kids were young is 0.
Yeah. I went to one when our kids were 2 months old, and that's because they were basically just little baby flesh, and they're easy to take care of. So that was the only con I went to until I think they were about 3.
Marshall says Gen Con is on the list, but BGG Con or Geekway to the west are both closer and more likely to happen.
I forget about both too.
Those are both of. I haven't been to Geekway yet. Alex from the Dukes is always trying to get me to go to Geekway, and one of these days I am, because it's not that far. But BGG Con is really good. Only about 5,000 people, and it's got all the gaming and still all the vendors you want. So it's like a bite-sized version of Gen Con in a friendlier atmosphere. Gen Con is hard, man. It's hard.
I think they said 65,000 for Gen Con this year. That's not
70 this year.
Oh, 70,000. Wow.
70,000 this year. My voice is still a little ragged out from it. I don't know how well yours are covered, but I did a lot of demo. I mean, I demoed for 4 to 6 hours every single day for every day. So
yeah, I had maybe 4 hours of downtime every day. Because what happens is I also met with some vendors, and I met some printers and also reviewers in addition to the demos. And a lot of times those all take place after the exhibitor room closes. So you're not really having your business meetings until they've packed up for the night. And that doesn't start until 8 or 9 p.m. So, the meetings start at 9 p.m. I did a demo for Dan Shu of the Analog. And he also, I was a big fan of his ever since Electronic Gaming Monthly.
Sure. Yeah.
So, but we didn't have our demo.
Analog Gamer, right? Isn't that the name of it? Yeah.
And we didn't have our demo, I think, until 11 p.m. Wow. Because that's when we both were able to.
I did have a couple of late nights like that and paid for it the next day. But speaking of games, sometimes I talk to a publisher or designer and they're like, "Look, I've only got time to do my games. I don't really get a chance to play any others." This summer, have you guys played any other games? Have you hit anything spicy? What about you, Dan? Anything spicy you've played recently?
Yeah. So there was about a month, the last month, where I didn't play anything because Tactics has been really ramping up and we've been losing all our time. And I moved and all of that. But in the last 2 weeks, I would say I played, I learned Raiders of the North Sea, which was really cool. And I've been playing a lot of Welcome To. I didn't learn I've known that it's a great game, though. And so I've been getting a lot of that in. And then I've owned and played, but we just got a 5-player game of Villainous, and I had some friends over who'd never played it, and they wanted to check it out. So we did that. And Nick's coming over tomorrow, and I think we're going to play Wingspan.
Nice. First time for both of you?
Yeah, that'll be our first time playing Wingspan. But I literally bought the last copy, and it wasn't stocked on the shelves yet. Like, they just had a shipment come in, and they just set it aside on the front counter, and people were buying it off of that. And I'm like, "Hey, is that available?" And the girl at the desk actually said, "Yeah, it's the last copy."
You know what is so weird? Elizabeth was on the show, and we were talking about the scarcity of copies and how hard it is to find. And then all of a sudden, Alex Goldsmith texts me, and he's like, "Hey, I'm at the Audubon Institute over here in St. Louis, and they've got like a dozen copies of it." So it's in the weirdest places that you wouldn't think. But Jamie and Elizabeth have done a really good job to me of marketing this game to people who are not necessarily gamers.
Right. And I think that success really surprised them because, 10,000 is a pretty good order to sell out of immediately.
He's not Asmodee.
Right.
I mean, Jamie's one guy, right?
Yeah, and actually, there was a kind of a conspiracy theorist at the front counter. But like after I bought it, he's like, "Oh, is that the last one?" I'm like, "Yeah, sorry, man, I bought the last one." And he's like, "Well, I can't believe they, deliberately under ordered so that to create demand." I'm like, I'm pretty sure, like, if Jamie had a magical way to determine the demand, he would order exactly what the demand is. Like, he's not trying to under order.
No, I agree, Nicholas. Dan, speaking of what Nicholas just said, I don't know if you saw the new Tapestry game that he's putting out. Have you seen what the pre-orders are going to be? He has committed and has already printed 25,000 copies of that game. Now, you don't have to disclose anything, but I'm assuming that you did not print 25,000 copies of Animal Kingdoms.
No.
You do not have to disclose anything, but
no. That would be wonderful if we knew we could commit to 25,000 copies.
I totally agree, but when I see all that stuff on Reddit, I think to myself, these people, they must be from a different industry. Maybe they're thinking electronic gaming, because unless you're Asmodee, I don't know how you can commit to 25,000 copies of a game.
Part of the thing for me too with the conspiracy theories is like they think he's trying to undersell to jack up the price. But although you might increase the cost of some copies now, it's always better to have, if he had an extra 10,000 copies that he could sell right now, which he could, he obviously would, right? Mm-hmm. Because the way the board game industry goes too, if he sits on a print and by the time the second print comes out, you know how many games are going to get released in those few months?
Right.
Yeah.
That, although it's a great game and interest is going to stay high, it's not going to be the same as it is right now. You know what I mean? And so it's always better for him, obviously, if he could get those 10,000 extra copies sold right now, to cut off, the supply now and wait 3 or 4 months and do it again while he's releasing Tapestry and however many other games are coming out in the next few months. It just doesn't make sense. Like, I would rather, obviously, and I think he would too, if he knew he could have sold 20,000 right off the bat, he would have just ordered it. Right. Economies of scale are lower. He would have paid less per copy, and he would have sold them all direct to customer immediately. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I was talking.
He cut out a bit, but I just don't think it makes any sense that would have happened. So I don't know. It's all conspiracy theories.
BJ also mentioned digital format too, like people who are used to video games. Like it costs like a quarter to print a Blu-ray, right? And most people buy digitally now anyway, right? They don't realize like print a copy of Wingspan, even at really large numbers, is what, $15 maybe?
Right.
And Nicholas, no one would do this, but you could release a digital version of a game, even though it's not quite ready, and then just keep uploading DLC, right?
Yeah, we can't day one patch a board game, right?
No,
that's
people scream.
It's a broken game. Yeah.
Hey, I was going to ask you something, Dan. Bonacor told me something that I never would have thought of. He said something like, "It's not the first print run that's the tough decision; it's the second print run." Because is it right at the end whenever everyone who likes this game has gotten a copy and you all of a sudden you order that second print run and nobody wants it? You know what I mean? That's a tough decision for a board game company. But everybody wants the evergreen, right, Dan?
Right. Yeah, no, it's a really tough decision. So I'm actually going through that with Groves right now. So I don't know if you're familiar with it. A game I did a year and a half ago, Groves. It's a bag building worker placement. It had a good reception. People really enjoyed it. It wasn't like an evergreen or something that's really, really well known, but people really seem to enjoy it. And I have maybe 20 copies left. People were just asking in Tactics if we were going to offer it in the Pledge Manager. And the answer is no, just because we don't have any.
Right.
But honestly, if I put it in the Pledge Manager and sell 100, does that justify even 1,000 print run? If I'm sitting on 900 copies and they're not really selling anymore, that's going to hurt real bad. And so
it just kills your cash flow, man.
Yeah, and they sell really well in cons in person, but like when I'm working on, we're really working on embracing Tactics and working on future content for that. Do I want to invest in another print run, or do I want to build this new IP that I think is going to do even better? So it's a really tough decision, because if we go full on Groves and then the second print tanks, then that's just a lot of wasted money.
BJ from Board Game Gumbo, I've got my guest here, Dan Letzring of Letterman Games, and also board game designer Nicholas Yu. And we're talking their big Kickstarter today that's got a couple of days left, if I remember right, 3 days left on the Kickstarter. Adventure Tactics Domianne's Tower. Nicholas Yu, this is not your first design, but this is the first one you've designed in this world, right?
Yes. Yeah, this is the first game of hopefully, as Dan said, a new IP. So That's
So
why we
you
give it the subtitle.
you and Dan are at the Maker Faire. You've been friends, and then all of a sudden you find out you share something in common, right?
Yeah, we both said, Final Fantasy Tactics was our favorite video game. And we talked about how there are a lot of great dungeon delving tactical board games like Descent, Gloomhaven. There's a ton of those. But what there isn't is a game that replicates the job system that we both loved. And that's such a core part of Final Fantasy Tactics that it just seemed like a shame that no one tried that in the analog world. And it turns out nobody tried it because it's really huge. Like it was almost insurmountable. We ended up with over 800 cards because you need a lot of physical components or cards to replicate the job system.
One of the things that intrigued me about Adventure Tactics is what I have on the screen right here. All of the classes. I mean, it looks like you guys have really tried to implement the class system. Is that something you and Dan divided up, or was this you just brainstorming and going crazy?
Apparently, that was just me going crazy. Most of that was done in that 20-page design document that weekend. Dan and I talked about it, and I came back. I emailed him like the next day, and I'm like, I don't think I slept. Here's what I came up with. And
Dan, how often have you gotten a 20-page document all about a game before anything has been done?
Well, that's what was amazing was he was like, yeah, I worked on this a little bit. Let me send it to you. And I'm opening it. I'm like, you worked on this a little bit? This thing's huge. And I'm reading through it. And it was great. It was brilliant. But I'm like, there was so much involved in it. There was about probably all 21 classes, the original were in there right off the bat. And it was just amazing to go through it and see it all there and done. And like you said, what I love is how freeform it is, right? So like you don't just go linear and branch and go. It's like you start as a cleric, and if you want some fireballs, you just go wizard 1 when you level up. Or if you want to keep going with cleric and hone your skills, you go cleric 2. Or if you want some melee, go fighter 1. Whatever you want. And then as you go fighter 1, you go cleric 2, fighter 2, then wizard 1. It's really just whatever you want whenever you want, which having that power to control how you advance and what passives you get and what passive abilities you get and what dice abilities you get and how your character progresses is completely in your hands. So it's so RPG-like in a way that I don't think a board game has ever tackled, which is amazing.
Yeah, Nicholas, talk to me about something. It's going to bring up inevitable comparisons to a game like Gloomhaven, right? And you've addressed that in some of the interviews you've done. But I see a bunch of differences between this class-based system that you have and kind of the rigid you're going to discover a class, but then you're going to have to play it.
Right. And I love Gloomhaven. And let me just preface
So do I, yeah.
Excuse me. But right, you're locked into that. And after you unlock it and you play it, you might actually have to play that class for an entire session, like a 2-3 hour session, where you're like, I don't even like this class, but I have to play it because that's the one I moved into, and then you retire the character and move into another. So, so this is that, as Dan was saying, that free form, as you were saying too, the free form class. So you can really customize a character and go crazy with it. And a lot of people, like, there was one guy in the Kickstarter comments who said, like, I made, he went with the character builder and made like 30 characters for a game that's coming out next year.
Wow.
Yeah, and what's cool is they're already starting to see some of the synergies. Like there's one way you can go that will so it allows you to hit all characters in range. And then there's another way you can go with like a ranger that's going to give you a big range. And they're like, oh, wait, so if I go ranger and then I go monk, I can combine the two and have really powerful attacks to everyone with it. And people are seeing that without, us even releasing a lot of that yet. And it's really cool that people are finding that. And there's a lot more synergies like that we're excited for people to find. And so again, in comparison to these other campaigns, another thing that was really important to us was to keep the fights about 45 to 60 minutes, right? So a lot of these games, you're there 3 or 4 hours and you barely progress through the game, right? You've done one fight. It's not deep into the campaign. We were like, we want quicker fights with more progressive level ups so that you can play through a campaign and do a whole different class build, because there are an infinite number of ways you can just get to, say, Barbarian 2 or Monk 2. I mean, you can go the same character but have done it a million different ways to get there. And we want people to play with that. And so we wanted shorter fights so that there's more playthrough of that, so you can do that and explore the characters and explore what you can do with it.
So take off your publisher hat for a second. Put on the Final Fantasy Tactics fan for a second, Dan. How close did Nicholas you get to putting a board game, to putting Final Fantasy Tactics into a board game?
When I nudged him about I want to see a Final Fantasy Tactics style board game. Really, it was about the class system, and that he emulated perfectly. There's even the passives that you can slot in with different abilities. You select every fight. You have a pool of them as you've leveled up that you receive based on what you do. And that's so Final Fantasy Tactics-esque. I mean, with the exception of like elevations missing and a couple other things like that, which we're going to possibly work into some stuff.
Is this a Gumbo scoop?
Maybe. But really the peak was the class system, and that Nick emulated nearly perfectly. And so if you're looking for an exact Tactics ripoff, this isn't that. But if you want the class system from Tactics in a skirmish board game, an encounter based, and we got to choose your own adventure campaign, so that's a little different too, right? And
Sure.
But if you want that class system, that is here, and that is done really, really well.
Nicholas, I got to ask you a question though. So one of the things that I like, I'm talking to Nicholas Yu and Dan Letzring from Letterman Games, all about adventure tactics, Domianne's Tower. And one of the things I want to find out is, I noticed, at least in some of the gameplay videos that I watched, that people can have an encounter, run through the encounter, and then all of a sudden a card from that encounter is going to get stuck and maybe come back later. A la Robinson Crusoe a little bit?
Yeah, so your level of success, there's 3 ways to progress through a campaign. Either you beat the objective with a bonus, or you fail. And that can change how you branch through. So right, like Robinson Crusoe, how you deal with that event can affect a future random encounter. And in some cases, it'll actually affect a fight later on too. It could affect a fight later on.
How much playtesting does it take, though, to see how that comes back? I mean, whether the card ever comes back, and when it does, is it still balanced later on in the campaign?
Yep.
That's got to be tricky.
I will say a lot of the stuff that hits you later or carries through is a lot of story driven. They might be minor effects, so they're not like full on fights that are going to completely affect how you're going or put a complete wrench in your path. But it's just more, it keeps the story going. It makes sense story-wise how it happens. And it might be a minor good thing or a minor bad thing, but they're not going to completely shift the game, if that makes sense. Like a lot of
that makes sense.
Story things that carry on.
Right.
Yeah, like you see in a set of books or a set of movies, and then there's a nod to something that happened in an earlier movie. It kind of brings you as part of that inner club, right? So this is a reward thing where later on in the game,
just nod like we hear him.
Yeah. I think I can tell where he's going. Yeah.
Well, because everyone in the live can still hear and see us. So.
Yeah.
You guys are still live, so don't worry, they can hear you.
Well, so, and I give an example of one of the earlier ones because it's not really a spoiler, but what I love that Nick did was something like the first fight. You fight the main boss and he has minions, and the bonus is to defeat all the minions. If you don't do it, a card moves into the random encounters. Is basically the minions raid you later. And so as you're going and traveling, if that card comes out, it's these minions that you didn't do come back and kind of sack your caravan. And it's a minor thing that happens. You're not doing a full fight and fighting them again, but it's like you didn't kill them. Now they're back, and it just makes sense story-wise, and it continues that story, so you feel like you're in it as a part of that story, if that makes sense.
So Dan, take a look. I've got a picture thrown up there from your Kickstarter page. This is, tell the viewer, why should they go right to the Kickstarter page as opposed to waiting it to retail? I mean, that's one of the things, of course, getting it early for you is always one of those things, but usually there's some lagniappe, as we call, about going to the Kickstarter.
And we've had a lot of questions about this because the pricing, it's not like a deep discount because, that's really bad for retailers in life after the campaign as well. And we have to think the whole long term with this as well. A couple reasons to back now. One is, we're a small company and a lot of money has been invested early in this game. And buying direct from us, one, helps us more, but two, it helps us gauge interest. It helps us figure out the first print run, what we're going to do. We can't just print, like you said, 20,000 copies of this game if we only have 500 backers in this game, right? So we're really gauging how the first print run is going to go, the number of backers. These stretch goals are real. It's not like, we have these hidden stretch goals that we're paying for anyway.
Good.
The more people that back this make the game better for everyone who back it now and for those who buy it in retail. It's, we're helping everyone who plays this game. We're making a much better game because, it's just cool upgrades we're adding. But also one thing we did want to reward some people. We get it. You're investing money early in a game you might not have played, and you're taking our word for it. So we have this side quest booklet that we're including in it. It's got some it's basically one shot, single session fights that are all done by guest designers. So we have cool campaigns or scenarios written by Nikki Valens, who did Mansions of Madness.
Sure.
Sen Fung Lim, who has 100 different designs.
The Bamboozle Brothers, yep.
Nicole and Anthony Amato, Sarah and Will Reed, Ming Yang Lu,
Ian
Zhang, Stephen Aramini, as you mentioned. He's a good friend of mine, so we reached out to him. Ben Haskett. And what's cool is they all think of these things different from what we do. So already the 3 we've seen are completely different types of fights and completely different things than what we had. So it's just fresh new takes on the game, cool things to do. So we're going to include a PDF for, we want people to be able to access this. So anyone who buys this in the future can access the PDF, but what we're going to do is a print version of it that's free for all Kickstarter backers. We might have them limited direct from us at cons and stuff like that for a small price. But really, it's not going to be something we're doing a big print run on. It's just really kind of a gift for our backers and then some after.
Nicholas, Dan is promising a lot of content there. Are you up for the challenge if this thing really takes off? It's blowing up on Kickstarter, but if this thing has some legs, can you keep the fans happy? It seems like all Isaac does is Gloomhaven, Gloomhaven, Gloomhaven. You know?
I'd be lying if I said I don't have an expansion half written out already.
Knowing him, he's already got 40 pages done, Dan.
I have about 10. About 10 pages.
He's just waiting for this to be done to start on that.
Kind of. And it's got an alternate timeline because I love generational stories and kind of different factions. So you have a central area that you're branching out from rather than going to the tower. So you're defending a place and expanding from there rather than this typical hero's journey that we have in the first campaign. So that's your Gumbo scoop. That's more insight to
I love it
to the potential expansion.
And we've also talked about a mini expansion as well. We've got a lot of ideas for this, and there are a lot of cool things we can do.
Because the campaign's done so well,
there's a lot of
Domianne
options for us to work with this, and we have a lot of cool ideas. So Nick and I have talked about it. I've stopped accepting pitches for Letterman Games too, and I'm not really considering a lot because we want to embrace, if this does well, we're ready to just focus on this and see what we can do for this, because we have a lot of cool ideas and we think it's awesome. We love this game, not just because we're making it, but it's great, and we have a lot of cool ideas for it. So we're like, let's just do this.
I love it. So we got about 3 days left on the Kickstarter. It's blowing up like crazy. Is there anything that you're going to be doing in the last 3 days, or are there any stretch goals that haven't been announced that you can maybe just hint around about?
I announced 3 new ones today. They're pretty cool.
I hadn't seen those yet.
Yep. So we announced an extra set of dice because we have there are 4 different dice in the game, and right now there are 2 sets, 2 of each. And so we're going to add an additional set so that you have 3 sets of dice. So there's less passing them around the table, and it's easier to do your rolls. We have an additional mini we're adding. So we've already got 10 minis in the base game and 1 in the expansion we're offering. So we're going to add 1 more mini for the expansion. And then I think my favorite stretch goal of all is the one after that. It's plastic poker chip initiative tokens. So right now we have cards to determine initiative every round of a fight.
Okay.
And so these are going to be like in Too Many Bones style, the plastic poker chips with the printed sticker on them. They're really tactile and nice to shuffle and to do. And so that's one of our bigger ones.
I played my first chip theory game at Gen Con, and the sense of stacking up those chips and moving stuff around. Cloudspire, I think it was.
Yeah, such a satisfying clinking sound. Right? Those poker chips together, such just something. Yeah,
I'm very tactile. I love games like Potion Explosion and things you can just play with bits. And for me, that was a really exciting ad. And then we were saying, that's the end of our regular stretch goals. If it really blows up in the final 48 hours, I have some big stuff down the line, but that's only if it goes crazy, and I'm not getting my hopes up.
We have some pie in the sky type ideas, but it would have to really blow up at the end.
But we're ready for it if it does. And I have one more kind of small thing I could add if we get there that I've been thinking as well. So I reached out to my printer today to get some numbers on it, but I haven't even actually talked to Nick about it. We'll talk about it after. It's not.
Ooh, wow, it's a real scoop there, Nicholas. You don't even know yet.
It's a sizzling hot news item.
It's Nicholas who goes to your house and teaches you the game. No, that's not it.
That would be amazing. We'll buy plane tickets and send Nick all around the U.S.
Right, every backer, and
Well,
that's Adventure Tech.
Eventually, I hope it blows up enough that someone would actually want that, rather than that being like a threat.
Yeah, right, exactly. If it doesn't fund, we'll do this. So, Adventure Tactics, Domianne's Tower. Where did the Domianne's Tower come from?
Domian's Tower. It's named after the evil queen. I wanted to find a name that sounds evil, like at first blush, right? Like
Sure.
Domianne, like domination, dominate, and also it kind of segs into a name. So there's a lot of with the naming convention, there's a lot of little references like that. So
Yes.
very comic book type naming conventions.
Steve reminds you, I may freeze up. Everybody else can listen, so don't worry about that when the Swamp Cat hits. So yeah,
Taylor. I saw Taylor sent the video, which I think is the intro video to the Kickstarter.
oh
Well, thank you, Taylor.
The video on the Kickstarter. I watched it. I actually have it up here, but we won't be able to play it. Steve put up a link to that video so people can check the Kickstarter video right from this video. So that is Adventure Tactics, Domianne's Tower. It's out on Kickstarter right now. Make sure you guys check it out. This is a board game show, though. And if we're gonna have a board game show, we got to play a board game.
Sure.
Let's do it.
You guys up for the challenge?
I'm ready.
All right. So the game that we have tonight, it's called the Jambalaya Game, and Steve O'Rourke. Normally, Steve does all of these. Oh wait, hold. We got a stretch goal here. BJ hand delivers a bowl of gumbo. That is not going to happen, Dave Duga. He's got like 1 million backers in this thing. What are we up to?
1,100 backers.
1,100 backers, Duga. I can't deliver that much gumbo.
Yeah, I never got my scoop of potato salad, and I backed at the potato salad level. So
Ooh, yeah. That is not going to happen. So
Nick,
Dave, sorry.
Nick
So
and I
this-
were. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. You can
I
say.
was just gonna say, Nick and I were just saying we were hoping for 1,000 backers before the final 48 hours, which is tomorrow night at 9. And he messaged me tonight. He's like, "We didn't just hit 1,000. We're at 1,100." And we were both just really excited and like kind of sharing in our success together. That like how great that was. But yeah, it's exciting. But you're gonna have to.
You
deliver
guys
cover
have a
all.
chance of hitting 1,500 backers. That's got to be exciting for you, Nick.
yeah, that would be crazy. I mean, that's the dream, right? 1,500.
All
That'd
right,
be
so the Jambalaya Game. This is how it works. We're gonna take board games and other stuff, and we're gonna mash them up. It could be a terrible pun. It could be just a regular mashup. I'll give you an example, and then we'll see. We're gonna see how many of you guys can get right. But you're competing against the chat crew, so the chat crew is gonna try to outguess you. Now you got an advantage because of the delay, but still, there's some really good players out there in the chat crew. So here's an example. If I gave you a board game, and this is what I described it as. It's a 2-player game the world absolutely needs. Ancient Civilization meets the Velociraptor. What game would I be talking about? I'd probably be talking about 7 Wonders Duel.
The Sore Island. Okay,
Oh yeah.
got it. He cut out, but we got the answer.
Right. Yeah, I think you got it. Yeah.
There I am. Okay, I'm back. I do the swamp gas dance sometimes to try to get the internet to work again. All right, here we go. So you guys understand how it's played?
Yeah.
Any questions? All right. Are you ready for the Jambalaya Game?
All right,
Yes.
let's do it.
First question. Some of these you guys are going to recognize because we try to make it easy for you. All right. The Mesozoic worlds. What is their most popular salad topping? What's their most popular salad topping? What do you think it is? What board game would that be?
I think you should really.
Yeah,
know.
no, dude, ranch dressing.
Yes.
I'm like, if you don't get this one, Dan.
Okay, we started out nice and easy, right? All right. So Steve's going to mark that one down. Dan gets, I think both of you guys got it because Nick, it looked like you knew what the answer was, right? All right, so here we go. What if the Kentucky Derby owner made a terrible decision? Make the horses run on hard surface track like a parking lot. The fans would be drinking what in protest?
I need that one again. I think.
What if the Kentucky Derby, the owner of the Kentucky Derby, made a terrible decision? Make the horses run on a hard surface track like a parking lot. The fans would be drinking what in protest? Hey, there's Chris Strain. Chris, I still got asking for troubles right here, brother. I played it.
It's
I played it a
another
couple
one
weeks
on one
ago.
of my games. I know this, but I don't know the second half.
Oh, you got the game. Are you willing to give a hint to the chat crew by throwing the game out there?
It's one of my games published by Button Shy.
It
And
is.
Julep.
Very good.
Julep, yeah.
but the parking lot's what's throwing me off.
Yeah.
Hard to-
Mint julep, right? What could it be? Any ideas out there, chat crew? Come on, Chris, Dave, anybody?
Yeah, I don't know the second part either.
I think we're going to have to call it, Steve. We made it a little too tough. So the Kentucky Derby owner, if he did that, people would be drinking pavement julep in protest.
Okay, all right.
Okay, gotcha.
Some of them are better than others. Sorry about that. Oh,
Cement julep. That's a good one too.
you know what, Marshall? I'm going to give you that one because that's probably better than pavement. Cement julep is
That's
good.
pretty good.
Steve, give that
2
one
points
to
for
Marshall.
Marshall.
Yeah, give that one to Marshall. That's good. All right, here we go. The board game. Here's a great board game to talk about. The board game where Mayans turn their bodies instead of gears to get a tan on the beach. I mean, when you're down there on the Gulf of Mexico, you gotta get a tan on the beach, man. What board game are we talking about?
I know a game.
The game's pretty simple there. The board game where Mayans turn their bodies instead of gears to get a tan on the beach. Oh, Steve's ready to believe he's got his cursor just blinking at me right now. Can somebody get that out there? Marshall, Chris, you know this game.
What's the game, Dan? This one I don't know.
Sulkin.
Soaking.
Soaking.
Sulkin.
Yeah, soaking. Soaking rays.
Sulkin rays. Is that
Yeah,
it?
that's it. Soaking up some rays. We're gonna give it. I kind of slipped whenever I pronounced it there. I was doing that a little too early. So, Steve, we're gonna give that one to Nick unless somebody comes in on the chat. But we're gonna give that one to Nick for that one. All right, here we go. Ready for another one?
Good.
So you guys are younger than me. Let's see. This one might be a little
I
tougher.
don't know if that's true.
We're gonna see. I'm Ian Popping Zang. I'm Tony Locking Miller. And I'm Dan Electric Boogaloo Letzring. And we're... What are we? Some of these are not board games themselves.
Yeah,
They're just board game related. I knew it, Chris. I knew you knew the game. You just didn't know where to... Yeah, not a lot of people knew where to go from that one. All right, so I'm Ian Popping Zang. I'm Tony Locking Miller. And I'm Dan Electric Boogaloo Lettering. And we're...
Is this a movie one?
Dan, come on.
Well, I know the first half.
It's the introduction to every certain thing that happens.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So breaking into board games too, Electric Boogaloo.
Close. What are they doing? Popping, locking, and Electric Boogaloo.
Breakdance. Breakdancing into board games.
Breakdancing into board games. Dan, were you close to it?
Well, I knew it was breaking into board games. I didn't get the breakdancing. There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
I was going that's why I asked if it was a movie thing, because I was going with the movie name, like Breaking Two. All right.
Yeah, you got to figure out where Steve and I are going with that one. I understand. Hey, Dan, did you hear? Carla Kopp is starting yet another board game company. 2 is not enough. This one, though, she's got an unusual mascot. It's Strange Coffee Pots. What's the name of her new board game company? Oh, look at that. Jesse might have gotten it. He did. You guys don't know it, but they're in their world, you're a little bit behind.
Oh,
Jesse actually sniped it from you there, Nick. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we can give Jesse the point for sure.
Yeah, Steve's the final judge, and he saw Jesse in there first. Yeah, Jesse, you should know that one. I bet you did some breakdancing back then. If you haven't seen Jesse's videos, he does a lot of the Kickstarter videos. He does the Gray Fox stuff, Reavers of Midgard. Yeah, he does just amazing work.
Marshall got it.
Oh, yeah.
Weird carafe.
Yeah.
That's nice.
That's terrible, Dan.
I was thinking percolator.
Yeah. I was totally on the wrong path for that one.
Yeah.
Whoever came up with that clue should be shot.
That was good.
Weird craft games. That's just
I'm
terrible.
thinking too far into this.
No, these are dumb. You got to think dumb.
I was thinking Galactic Raptor, and I'm like,
Galactic. I was trying to think things out.
Percolator Raptor. Yeah.
Weird carafe. Yeah, Marshall got that one. So good job, Marshall. All right. So here we got another one. It's a little tough on the description, but I think you guys are going to get it. It's a fast-paced card game that alternates between deck building and positional card battles. The end game, Nick's smiling already. The end game is an epic battle between Team Chicken Shawarma and Team Lamb.
Well, I know the
Key
game.
for gyro.
No. Think of the game, Dan.
Close. That is almost worse.
It's Euro Brigade, right?
That's
Euro Brigade.
Euro Brigade. Yeah, I stole that from one of your interviews. I mean, I think you said that like word for word, and I just twisted it at the end. So yeah, Euro Brigade. I was rather proud of that one.
That's a
Euro
good
Brigade.
one. That's a good one.
Yes, the chat crew always knows when I do the clues because they're really particularly grown worthy. Nicholas, your game is getting a lot of buzz. Did you know that?
Yeah. Turns out.
Imagine though, if you had gotten Donald X Vaccarino as your co-designer, then what would you have called the game?
Adventure Tactics, Dominion's Tower.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one.
Yeah, sorry, that's an easy one. Steve, we probably should have had that one first because that one's really, really simple. So, are you guys still Dominion fans?
I still am. I love Dominion. I'll play it anytime.
We have a couple of the expansions. Love the Nocturne, one of the newer ones.
Yeah, Nocturne. I've only played that one once. I liked it. In fact, it was better than the previous set. Prosperity is still my favorite of the expansions.
Intrigue's pretty cool too.
I love playing all the gold. You know, just more money.
Yeah.
All right. I love D&D. I love D&D games with rogues and thieves, but nothing says intrigue cards like political scandals with dirty tricks. Ben Bradley gets a mandatory quest in this brand new game. It just came out of Gen Con called, what is it called? I love D&D. I love newspaper publishing. I want to combine them. Rogues and thieves, political scandals. What's that?
Lords of Watergate.
Lords of Watergate. Yeah, we went a bunch of different ways with that. Lords of Waterdeep, Lords of Waterdeep Throat. we went a bunch of different ways.
That actually worked. Yeah.
We thought Waterdeep Throat may have some different connotations. It's just Facebook, so
that could be a really different game.
All right, just a couple of games left. You guys are doing really well. The chat crew is there's Jesse. Oh, Jesse may have.
I wonder if Jesse pinged in before me.
Steve, what's the call on that one? Did Jesse snipe that one?
Sorry, Jesse. That Nick got
I got it pretty quickly, but I think
we could give a point to each. Give a point to each.
Yeah, we may have to do that because that was a pretty quick one there. All right, we only got a couple left here. Players take on the roles of. Oh yeah, Steve's calling it. He went back. Jesse got it. Sorry, Nick. You just got to be super quick. Nick,
that's why I can never do Jeopardy. Like I know the answers, but I can never win on the buzzer, right?
Yeah, Jesse's quick on these. Players take on the roles of rival detectives bent on using the latest crazy technology to solve crimes and build the quirkiest inventions. Go gamer.
Go Gadgeteers. Inspector Gadgeteers.
Inspector Gadgeteers. Yeah, there you go.
Nope, and he froze.
But Inspector Gadgeteers is it for sure.
There we go. See, it works. You just got to do the swamp gas dance.
The dance. All
right, I think we have 3 left. Here we go. And one of these is really dumb. I'm not sure if I'm going to actually say this one. Let's see. My favorite racing game of all time. It simulates a road race. Well, this is not true. This is Steve's clue because it's not my favorite racing game of all time. But my favorite racing game of all time. It simulates a road race, but there's a catch. In this game, they only let doctors drive. They only let doctors drive in this, for many people, the favorite racing game of all time.
I don't play a lot of racing board games, so I don't know the game for this one.
It's not Flamme Rouge.
They only let doctors drive. Yeah. I enjoyed that episode 69, Dan, when you were on that episode with Breaking Into Board Games. Doing the freeze. You know, Dave, you joke. I've played the freeze many times. Sometimes as many times as 8 or 10 times in a night. That was a rough gig. What do you think? Favorite racing game of all time. It simulates a road race, but here's the catch. Adam Austin is so close. Formula Doctor.
Formula D. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Formula D is a game. I think Marshall got it.
Marshall's close.
That's not it?
It's
Formula
not it.
MD. They got it. He got it. Right? It's not Formula MD?
It's not Formula MD. It's a Letterman game.
Formula PhD?
Formula PhD. Episode 69. You talked about it on the episode.
I did talk about it on the episode. Yeah, I keep that one kind of hidden away.
Yeah, you said I think it's still available and sells every once in a while on Game Crafter, right?
I sold 2 this week.
Yeah, but you said it best. It's the only PhD game out there. So if somebody Googles it,
right. One to Toronto, one to the United Kingdom.
All right, I'm gonna give you this one. This one's for Steve. This one's from Steve, not for me. I can't claim this one. Han's old friend could really use a rest stop. The Millennium Falcon needs to pull over immediately for. It's just so terrible, Steve.
It could also be Lando. What was the clue again?
Han's old friend could really use a rest stop. The Falcon needs to pull over immediately for. Steve, that's so bad. I think he wrote the answer. Yeah, I think that's what he's saying, and I wrote the clue. I don't remember writing the clue for this one, though. Man. Oh, no, that was the Formula PhD one. That's right. Yeah. He wrote the answer. I wrote the clue on that one. Han's friend he's eating too many tacos, man. He really needs a rest stop. The Falcon needs to pull over immediately for. Yes, it is true, Steve. I do love it. The dumber, the better for me. Or whenever you get me to sing. I do like the singing ones, but we don't have any singing ones tonight. So, any idea what game that is?
Landire. It's a game?
It's a game. It's a game. It's a game. It's a game. It's actually a famous game. Tom Vassell loves this game. He loves this game, and he talks about it all the time. I'll give you a hint. It was a different theme, and then they Star Wars'd it. Tom Vassell loves both of them.
Chewbacca Zone?
No, but that is true. That is true.
Star Wars version of that.
Yeah. Not in North America, but they do make a Star Wars Carcassonne. That's right. Han's old friend could really use a rest stop. The Falcon needs to pull over immediately for. All right, Steve. I think we have to call it.
Judges for this one.
Steve, I can't say. You put it up. What is it? It is Poopin' Chewy instead of Lupin.
I own Lupin Chewy.
You own it?
I do. I love that.
Man. All you had to do was turn around and look at your shelf.
I played it 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I haven't played it, but I heard of the game. Like,
We played it tomorrow. Very quick.
The game, so yeah.
All right, this is gonna be a tough one. We're gonna end on a tough one. Oh, Marshall was in there. Poopin' Chewy.
Good.
Yeah, Marshall's crushing it. Marshall and Steve are crushing this.
He's crushing it. All right, here we go. Here's the last one. It's a tough one. Let's see if you guys can get it. We're gonna pull out the stops for this one. Are you guys Hisashi Hayashi fans? Yep. He's got a card-laying game of animals playing music, but he's made it difficult by the presence of the god of mischief.
Loki Doki.
Oh, wow. It wasn't that tough at all. You must have played Okie Dokie.
I own it. I love that game.
Okay. All right. It's one of Steve and I's favorite games that he and I discovered on our own. We both started playing, and we texted each other going, hey, you got to play Okie Dokie. It's great as a solo, you know? I mean,
I don't know how this happened because I don't think I'm that popular, but TMG reached out to me on Instagram and was like, hey, if we send you this game, will you post about it on Instagram? And I was like,
Yeah.
yes. I love TMG games. Their small box games are some of my favorite.
Yeah.
So for sure. And they sent it to me and I was like, this game's fun. Like, I really enjoyed it.
I played the heck out of it for like 3 weeks. I mean, every day because, and you know, if I remember right, you can kind of increase the difficulty with the
pandas.
With the pandas, right?
Yeah.
And we just kept making it harder and harder. It's such a good one.
Fun game, yeah.
Loki Doki. If you haven't played Jiraku, that's another one that people just don't talk about. And Jiraku is just so good. Not a solo game though.
Haven't played.
Nick, have you played Okie Dokie with me?
I have played Okie Dokie with you, but I haven't played Jiraku.
What do you think of Okie Dokie?
It was good. I don't know how a solo mode would work though. I'd be interested to see that.
On
You just
on
play
Okie Dokie? Yeah, I think I've only played it with my wife a couple of times. The rest of the times, I've basically played it solo. So it's
my own copy.
it's an interesting one. All right, that's the board game
was fun.
part that
Thank
we
you.
call the Jambalaya Game. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks.
All right, tell us about your con travels. Where are you guys going for the rest of the year? Anything?
Yes. So as I mentioned, I'm going to PAX Unplugged. We have a couple local things, another local maker fair. We have a local game dev thing that's actually really Rochester is a huge hub for video game design as well. So every year they do a big local game dev what would you call it, Nick? Of local? It's not really a con, but it's like a local exhibit.
Yeah,
You know.
it'd be like Exhibitors Fair. Yeah, something.
Exhibitors fair.
And that's in Rochester?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so the first year alone, we had like 30 local game devs doing video games and board games and stuff like that. And so just doing mostly local stuff through the end of the year. We're hoping next year to be doing a lot of stuff. So I'm hoping to go to Gamma, Origins, Gen Con, PAX Unplugged, pretty much everything.
Nick, what about you? Where are you heading?
We always go to BreakCon Con.
Yeah. Besides the local ones, the Rock Game Fest and Rock Game Fair, I think the only one I might make is PAX Unplugged this year. That might be the only other one I make this year.
Well, you can see Steve, and not me, but you can see Steve at PAX Unplugged if you want to check him. Steve did the counting, and you guys killed it. You guys won the Jambalaya Game, Dan and Nicholas.
I think
Presented tonight by Game Toppers LLC, by the way. Increase your gaming visibility out there and enhance your gaming experience with those Game Topper LLCs, which you can still get on the Pledge Manager if you get a chance to. So check that out if you get a chance. All right, board gamers, that's it for another episode of Gumbo Live. I want to thank my guests, Dan Letzring and Nicholas Yu. Thank you guys for coming on here, man. We had such a great time talking about a game that is obviously a passion project for you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It's been great.
Chat too.
Yeah, and that's Adventure Tactics, Domianne's Tower. Still, we're in that 70-hour window on Kickstarter, so make sure everybody get out there and check it out. If they want to reach you, if they want to reach out to you about the game, how do they reach you? Nick, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I always joke about this because I never thought about my social media presence, but my Twitter handle is YUTINGXIANG, and it's always better just to find me through Dan.
Well, that's what I did. I mistyped yours when I did the Twitter thing whenever we announced it.
I hooked you up. I just tagged you to him.
I saw you did that, yeah. And Dan, how about you? How do they reach out to you or Letterman Games?
Yeah, everywhere I am at LETIMAN Games. And so that's on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm very accessible online. I'm always there and available to get in touch. So be sure to reach out.
Make sure to like our page, facebook.com/BoardGameGumbo. It helps us get the word out about all of our upcoming guests and shows. We're off for the rest of the summer, but right at when September rolls around, we'll be back with some guests, including our friend Jambalaya is going to be back on the show. If you guys haven't met Jeremy Howard, he's one of my favorite people in board gaming. He's awesome. And we'll also have Alex Goldsmith from the Dukes of Dice coming back on the show. I am BJ from Board Game Gumbo. And until next time, Dan and Nick, laissez les bon temps rouler.
Let the good times roll, right?
That's right.
Thank you so much.
For having us.